All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Bums podcast. It's your host, Rob, aka B-Ball Archives, and once again, I got the bums in the house, but it's a special day today because we got a new bum, James, aka Drama. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for the vine, as they say. I am so glad, first time, long time, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, AJ, it's nice to have Drama here, isn't it?
Oh my God, I've seen this kid grow up, man. It's pretty crazy. Now he's going to be having a kid in a couple months. We're super excited to have you, James. Also, big thank you to Mike Taylor for jumping on the podcast last time. That was a lot of fun. Great conversation. Hopefully we can have him again. But Rob, we've been on a roll with these guests lately. Maybe we need to have more guests on.
Absolutely. I think that is the answer. We got a whole lot of fun stuff lined up for 2025. This is the New Year's episode, so I feel like, we're turning a new leaf. That may be a new direction, just more and more guests. But you know what? Regardless, we got some fun Spurs stuff to dive into. We just had a massive win last night. We haven't seen a win this big this season, so it was nice to just see the Spurs go out there and clean the Clippers' clock.
Oh my God.
It felt so good to collect that receipt. I was talking to AJ yesterday, and after that game in early November where they just smoked that lead, it felt right. It felt poetic.
Absolutely.
Man, I miss those days. Remember back in the Tony, Tim, Manu days where we would just smoke, play just teams and just cruise on to a nice, easy victory and we can go to bed by 8. Like that was what happened last night. And I was so excited to just absolutely sit back on my couch, watch the game, watch Steph Castle bring in the heat because that dude had an amazing game. And I'm so glad that it was a blowout so he could see more minutes. I really think it was a get-right game for Castle mostly. And then on top of that, Highlight City? What are we, man? Are we Lob City again? What's happening? I don't know who these Spurs are and all these dunks and fun backboard passes and shit. Who are these people? So these are not your father's Spurs. I can tell you that right now.
Chris Paul brought a little bit of the Lob City with him, and, it's just so fun to see. I think this could be the most athletic Spurs team certainly of my lifetime, from top to bottom. Just you look at the roster, even the guys that come in off the bench from kind of deep on the bench. Look at Blake Wesley. That's a great athlete. This is the most high-flying athletic Spurs team that I've seen in a long time. And to beat a Clippers team like that that's decent, that's ahead of you in the standings, I think is a good signal going into next year.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They were 5th in the West going into last night, had won 3 games in a row. So this was not a Clippers team that was stumbling. This was a Clippers team that had been playing good basketball, had beaten multiple teams that were towards the top of the Western Conference throughout the year. So this was a team that, this was a win that you needed to get if we're going to stay in the playoff hunt. We need to be beating teams like the Clippers pretty consistently. Yeah. But to AJ's point, seeing Steph Castle come out in the second half and have that quick 8 points whenever he got the start in the second half, he had that steal that led to a transition bucket, and it was really nice to see him be able to take the ball from them and create the offense all by himself. And he had this block where it looked like he was playing volleyball. He just slapped it right off the backboard. And it's that's the kind of stuff that he can bring to the table. So, man, it was nice to see him get that much playing time, but I would love to see him get 25-plus minutes every single game, even if it's a tight game.
And, he's such a confidence-based player. Confident, you can tell when he has it and when he doesn't. And I don't know if it's the minutes. I don't know if it's playing with Trey and CP3 out there that are his guardrails that encourage him to be a little bit more aggressive. But it's fun to watch.
Okay, so you bring up guardrails. And that's the same term that you used in the group chat. So dive into that a little bit more. So you feel like whenever You feel like whenever Stephon Castle's out there with CP3 or Trey Jones, he's leaning on their playmaking abilities a lot more?
Right. I think it's a thing that's bigger than Stephon Castle as a whole. I think you saw it last year with the Sohan point guard experiment. The Spurs experiment with these non-point guard lineups, and I think Stephon Castle specifically is at a point in his career where he's not ready to be a point guard yet. And so when you see those minutes where he is playing point or he's asked to initiate more offense, that is when they're prone to struggle a little bit. You go through these stretches where the offense doesn't look right, it looks a little out of kilter. But when he has specifically CP3, but also Trey out there, he has confidence that he doesn't have to be the primary playmaker. He can be that kind of secondary, tertiary playmaker that I think, especially as a rookie, is really helpful for development. And it bears out in some of the advanced statistics. We saw earlier this year when Vassell was hurt, the Paul, Castle, Barnes, Sohan, Wemby lineup, I believe, was the top lineup in plus minus in the league. Yeah. And, I would like them to at least go back to that in small increments, because I think just playing, obviously, with CP3, I mean, how could you not have confidence as a guard?
Yeah, good things happen when CP3 is on the court.
And that's the guardrail. I mean, when I refer to that, is just like him playing with that confidence that he doesn't have to be the engine of the offense yet. I think he can grow into that for sure. Mm-hmm. But at 20 years old, 35 games into your rookie year, that's a lot to ask somebody that's not Ja Morant or Damian Lillard.
No, that completely makes sense. Yeah, I was kind of seeing what you were throwing out in the group chat last night, but also I see some of the inverse happening of that as well defensively, where I see Trey Jones and an older CP3 lean on Stephon Castle's defense a little bit more. He's a little bit, he doesn't need to rotate over that screen as quickly if he knows Castle is going to be picking up that offensive player. So I can kind of see the inverse happening on defense, where they're like, hey, we have one of the best young perimeter defenders in the league whenever we're out there. Trey Jones, it doesn't matter if he gets cooked by Bones Highland in the second unit nearly as much if Stephon Castle's nearby waiting to pick him up. So I kind of see both sides of that, but absolutely, offensively, Stephon Castle, he needs to grow into that main point guard facilitator, because he's not really there yet, but I agree with you, he could be.
Yeah, no, he could be. And I just think when you can defend 1 through 3 like he can, that lends to that versatility that you're talking about, where he can be that crutch for a Trey Jones who's had some health problems, or an older CP3. So I think it kind of works both ways. It helps him offensively and he helps them defensively. I think they call that mutualism. Should ask my wife. She's the biologist.
Well, one thing that I've noticed too, and more so last night, maybe because the Clippers were coming off a back-to-back, they were a little tired, they're just trying to get home. It's New Year's Eve, James Harden's not at a strip club, so he's just trying to get back so he can just party his balls off. I totally understand why they phoned it in. But one thing that I have noticed is whenever an opposing team is like, someone drives to the hoop and Wemby's there, just his presence, just to kind of throw him off, and they start to move and make that pivot, we're picking off a lot of those balls. And that's how we're getting a lot of these fast breaks. And we saw Harrison Barnes do it. We saw Chris Paul do it. We saw Castle do it. And it was all initiated because of our anchor down low. And that's something that I think we should continue to watch more of, because people are getting trapped down there. They don't know what to do. And we're reading those passing lanes perfectly. So that's something I was really excited to see last night, especially with, the Clippers. They seem to be a little lazy on offense, to be honest with you. But regardless, the fact that we're making those plays and creating those turnovers, leading to those easy buckets, just helps us in the long run. And it puts us on ESPN top 10.
Yeah. I think it's a good throwback too. You know, those great Spurs teams, like you were talking about earlier, AJ. They turned offense into defense and defense into offense like that. You know.
Yeah, and it all came from having a really good central rim protector that can really be your anchor. We had Tim Duncan. Before that, we had David Robinson. Now we have Victor Wembanyama. And you're able to play such an aggressive brand of defense when you're on the perimeter and you know you got the big guy back there who's just holding it down. You can push up on your defender a little bit more because even if he gets blown by, you got Wemby right there. And to your point, AJ, whenever he's got a big on him down low, is Zubac last night. It only took a couple of blocks in the first quarter, and all of a sudden Zubac is looking to pass out. He's looking for people cutting, through the lane or spotting up on the corner. He's not looking for his shot down low anymore. He's been completely demoralized after just getting pinned a couple times in the glass.
It cracks me up whenever because we've seen it already for like a year and a half now with Wemby, and you see someone get into the paint and they're like, I'm going to go up with it. And they just get pinned or they get stuffed or it's going the other way because, Wemby is that good defensively. And then they never check him again. They're like, all right, learn my lesson. We're not going to do that ever again. So
I'll always remember the Jabari Smith play. It was like Wemby's second or third game where he tries to like tomahawk dunk on Wemby. Wemby blocks it. The rebound caroms to Jabari, and he just tries to lay it up. And Wemby comes from like 3 feet out of bounds and blocks that too. That kind of just defensive. It's like Zion Williamson. The first jump isn't great. It's the second jump. The ability to not only block the shot, but get the rebound, save it, block a second shot. That's special. That's what's fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. He did it to Domantas Sabonis perfectly the other night, and he got blocked. Domantas got the ball so quickly, did a spin back over his left shoulder, did every single thing you're supposed to do right, and still just got his shit swatted twice in 5 seconds. And so
that's such a fun rivalry that they have brewing there, Sabonis and Wemby. They bring out the best of each other, I think, or they go hard against each other. It's fun to watch.
Oh yeah, that'll be nice to see that blossom over the next several years.
Now, the only thing that we had, how do I say this? I'm nervous about Jeremy Sohan. I'm hoping it's just like a muscle contusion, just a little back spasm, nothing crazy. But it was non-contact. All he was doing was jumping to get a rebound, or he was jumping to take that alley-oop and landed weird, and then we never saw him again. So I hope that it's a not a serious injury and is very minor, but to have him not come back and see the floor, that was rough.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling mixed signals about that. It is not, it's not positive to see him just, stay, not in the game. Obviously, we want to see him out there getting rebounds, being active on defense, all that stuff. But I also feel like it was a game where we didn't necessarily need him. It wasn't immediate like, hey, let's get our starters out there and really make sure we get this W. It was a game that we started out strong and we did not let up one moment. It was a 7, 8, 9 point lead, and then that ballooned to 20 to 30 and then kept going. So I feel like that was a game where, as much as we need him within the lineup long term, we didn't really need him last night. We were playing so well, and even if we didn't shoot well from beyond the arc, we still took it to them. So I think maybe keeping him out was just kind of a good, smart decision.
Yeah, and I think it was, you could get away with it, like you said, and I think to this point, through these first couple games against the Clippers, we have learned that this is a good matchup for the Spurs. Should they run into them in April down the road, this is a good matchup for them. They have a lot of bodies to throw at Norman Powell and James Harden. And, the Clippers don't really have a low post threat that scares anybody.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah,
maybe something to keep an eye on down the road.
yeah, very favorable matchup. I mean, there was a lot of really positive things last night. This was the first time in Spurs history that all 15 players scored.
Wow,
Wow.
really?
Yes, all 15 players scored a point in this game.
That's
I honestly didn't believe it, and I checked, and
yeah.
every single player scored at least 2 points. Nuts,
That's
right?
shocking. I blame Minge Batir for that, but you know.
Shout out to Meg Batir. I didn't think he was going to get a name drop today, but I guess it's
I've been playing a lot of NBA grids and NBA connections, so I'm up on these just random names from the '90s and 2000s.
oh, bro. I love a good hoop grid. Those are fun. Those are fun.
I can't play the normal connections because it would drive me crazy, but the NBA connections because it's a nice, like it's a narrowed category. I can do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The Mongolian monster.
I forgot he was Mongolian.
Bro, shout out to Mongolia. They're hooping. But at the end of the day, yeah, that's just crazy. Every single Spurs player scored last night. So that just is a signal as to how much of a we were just on. We were just on. It was just one of those nights. We shouldn't chalk that up to that's how we're going to play every single night. But hey, it's nice to just go out there and not stress during a whole game. Just go out there, start with the lead, finish with the lead. Easy work.
I mean,
it's a thrill that as Tech football fans we don't really get that often. So the Spurs have to give it to us.
Yeah,
and it's been some time since we got it too.
Right. Well, and I think it's important that we cherish it now because we've got a tough part of our schedule coming up. 7 of our next 8 games, we're playing teams with better records than us. We've got the Lakers twice, the Nuggets twice, the Grizzlies twice, and I'm honestly a little bit worried about this chunk of our schedule. How do you guys feel about our next upcoming chunk of games?
Well, it's not going to be easy, that's for sure. And also, on the heels of that, you had the rodeo road trip in February. So it's not like we have like this chunk, but also the chunk after that too. But
Right.
That's why a game like last night is so important, and to blow out a team that's better than you. So it's just a get right game. So all right, when we do this, this happens. When we do this, this happens. And we're not making those same mistakes we're making in the past couple of games because, losing those last minute games, that sucked. And that was frustrating to watch. But now it's like, all right, we know what we have. Wemby was averaging 28 points a game in December while also averaging like 5 blocks a game in December too. So now we have a guy who is playing at his probably the most confident he's played in probably his entire career. And then we also have CP3 who's there, who's going to be our just absolute cornerstone veteran. And then just put all the pieces around it. I mean, it's going to be tough. We're probably going to split some of those games. But I am also very positive that the game last night going into a new year just gives you that extra little boost and that confidence. So you can look at a game and go, all right, we're not going to blow every team out. We get that. But this is what we saw. This is what we can do. This is how our defense can respond. Let's go out and do it and see how we do against the top teams. It's going to be a fun challenge.
Yeah, and Rob, to your point, the one game that they have coming up that isn't against a team that has a better record than them is on the road at Chicago. I mean, we saw Chicago, granted Wemby didn't play, but Chicago beat them pretty handily earlier this year.
Yep.
And, for what it's worth, I know ESPN's basketball power index isn't the best metric of things, but they only have the Spurs winning 16 more games the rest of the year, finishing 33-49. Now, if you would have told me before the season that that's where they finish, I probably would have taken it. But at this point, it'd be a little disappointing to only win 16 more games, I think. But the schedule is, I mean, we'll see pretty quickly with this back-to-back against Denver how they're going to shake out. I think these are some telling games.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think it's so important how we close out these games because I think we can hang with anybody.
Absolutely.
Personally, I think toe to toe, we play some of the better teams in the West. Maybe not OKC. We're not hanging with OKC or Cleveland or Boston yet. Those are some pretty complete teams. But when I look at teams like the Lakers or the Nuggets, I think we can go toe to toe with those teams pretty easily. And I think it comes down to how we close out these games. When I look at our last 3 losses, it's come down to 5 points or less. And it's mainly about how we're getting these shots late in the fourth, who's taking them. I don't want Jeremy Sohan taking a 3 when we're down 2 to the Timberwolves. I want to try to get something that is more methodical and create a better situation to get a better shot. And I know that was kind of the best of a bad situation, and that's kind of how the cookie crumbled. But at the end of the day, I think closing out games like that against Minnesota is really important, and we need to be getting better shots.
Yeah, well, and I mean, Minnesota played phenomenal defense on that particular play. That being said, as a huge member of the Jeremy Sohan fan club, why is he out there in that situation? You need to have a threat out there, and that second quarter against the Timberwolves could come back to haunt them in the long run. That's a team that is a peer of yours, separated by, I think, a half a game in the standings, and that could cost you a tiebreaker. That could be the difference between being the 8 and 9 seed, being the 9 or 10 seed down the road. In the Western Conference, like I said, these games against Denver coming up, it's a back-to-back, and yeah, it's early January, but these could loom large when we get to late March, early April, like what we did to the Nuggets last year when we knocked them out of the 1 seed. That changed the playoffs. And, these kinds of games, we don't think about it in the long run, but they matter. And, you've got to be able to finish them consistently. It's a learning curve, and it's a painful learning curve as a fan, but there's just no other way. You've got to be able, by hook or by crook, to finish these games.
The good thing is some of these teams that are ahead of us, like the Nuggets, like the Lakers, they're looking to make some changes to their roster. We already saw the Laker trade the other day, so now they're going to try to get this new chemistry going again. And then I think the Nuggets are looking for a trade as well to try to get back on the top of the West. So you have these teams that are kind of, I wouldn't say they're in purgatory, but they're definitely in that, do we make a move? Do we make a move? Do we make a move? And if they start making moves, then that's going to throw off a lot of their chemistry. And I think that bodes well for a team like us who can come in and beat a team that's not fully prepared or fully ready or on the same page. I think for us, we've seen a lot of those. I think I saw this stat yesterday on the telecast. We're we're undefeated on games where we have a day rest and our opponents are in a back-to-back or something like that.
Yeah.
And so we're 9-0 now after last night. So in those types of situations, we might catch the Lakers sleeping. We might catch the Nuggets sleeping. So I think we definitely have some opportunities, but you just got to go out there and play the games. And we also got to see what's going on with Sohan and if he's going to miss any of these games too. Yeah. So bring in Riley Minix.
I've looked at the schedule pretty frequently, and I want to say they only have 3 or 4 more rest advantage games going the rest of the season. So continuing to capitalize on those will be a huge thing.
Yeah,
that's a good call.
I agree. Yeah, that's just smart. You knowing your opponent isn't going to be well rested, go out there, punch him in the mouth early, and then keep that attack going. Yeah, that's smart basketball. But yeah, we're bringing up some other teams in the West. We started talking about the Lakers. I think it's we need to talk about them shipping D'Lo out back to Brooklyn again.
It's a vicious cycle for D'Lo.
Right,
they're going to be a Laker and net, and
Well, so yeah, I'm looking at that trade, and I actually think the Lakers, they got a little bit better. Like I think that D'Angelo Russell was kind of a mixed bag for them on some nights where, LeBron or AD is banged up. Sure, he's a guy that can go get his own bucket, but at the end of the day, he just wasn't really a fit in that offense. You bring in a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith where he's the only player in the NBA this year that has guarded all five positions throughout the course of a game. And he's one of the most versatile defenders, all while shooting 43% from beyond the arc. So they got better not only from beyond the arc, but defensively as well. Some good guys that can fit alongside of AD and LeBron nicely. So I think they're making a push to try to remain relevant in a very, very gauntlet like Western Conference. So I think they made a decent move.
Yeah, shout out Shake Milton too. Underrated piece. He's a guy that, could get you 10 assists, could hit you 5 threes in a game.
Right. That's very true. He's all over the place, but I do agree. He is another guy that can go out, and if AD is just getting double and triple team down low and they're just collapsing on him, he's a guy I would not mind kicking to and letting him shoot an open corner three.
The only question I have is it's still, I guess, the same. Who's playing point guard? Because what I look at that Lakers roster, it's point guard by committee. And with 40-year-old LeBron, I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing why they're failing to really find true success right now. Even though LeBron is still putting up really big numbers, yeah, that distribution, their offense gets bogged down because they're playing too much isolation basketball and the ball's not moving nearly enough.
Yeah, I think Dorian Finney-Smith is a winning player and makes them a better team. I just think that they're the same in the sense that they could beat anyone in a 7-game series in the West, but they can't beat everyone.
That's true.
That's a good point.
So
Also, I looked this up after our podcast last time, and Sean Marks is still the GM with the Nets, and he has, I think the total was like James, I think you might know this. How many first round picks do they have in the next 5 years? I think it's 20 something. It's some ridiculous number. I can't remember the exact number, but it doesn't. They're gonna be good again.
yeah, and
It's
I
a matter
mean
of time.
they're not done. I don't think they're going to be tanking pretty hard for the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. They're out in Brooklyn.
Yeah, which makes all the sense in the world. I mean, even in a Eastern Conference where it's not really that hard to be the 6th, 7th, 8th seed, and they're not even gonna sniff that. So what choice do you have? Just blow it up. Might as well.
And they had sniffed it, and it gets tiring after a while. So you might as well just bottom out. They're not going the other direction.
Well, you just hope that they don't take all of these assets and do what they did about a decade or so ago and go and go get the old version of KG and Paul Pierce and just shit the bed.
I think they learned their lesson. I think they're also and the NBA, the NFL, MLB, it's all copycat leagues, right? So basically everyone saw OKC stack up all these picks, seeing the success that they're having now, seeing San Antonio do the same thing. And then so now it's what Eastern team is going to do that? And Brooklyn's we'll do it because, I mean, it's a huge market and it'd be really cool to see them kind of compete for that top spot. They're never going to beat the Knicks, but it'd be fun to see them kind of be somewhat relevant again.
Yeah, I mean, they're the Clippers, basically. They're the equivalent of the Clippers. But
Yeah.
it's still, I remember those KG teams. They got to the second round of the playoffs at least. That's no small feat.
Yeah,
Speaking
you're
of
right.
Small feet, KD.
His huge feet are the reason they probably don't have a championship there.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of what ifs, and that's certainly one of them. One of the other topics, gonna shift gears a little bit. One of the other topics we were gonna talk about is the Mike Brown firing. Mike Brown out of Sacramento. You are no longer the coach. A lot of people were saying, hey, it was long overdue. A lot of people were saying, hey, they should have given him another chance. How are y'all feeling about that? Should Mike Brown have been fired?
James.
I feel bad for Mike Brown because I feel like he's the ultimate scapegoat. Things weren't working out there, so I understand it, but it just throughout his career, it's just like, oh man, wrong place, wrong time for him. That being said, yes, the coach is going to lose to the player more often, and they're, ownership is going to choose to fire the coach than trade the player. But I just don't really see a means to an end with this decision.
I agree.
Yeah.
I questioned why they signed DeMar DeRozan in the offseason because it felt like a lot of copy and paste players on that team, and it really didn't fill any holes that they had. So, having him on the court, I guess I read a report that Mike Brown wanted to bring him off the bench at some point, and I think he's probably at that time in his career where he does need to come off that bench. But I same thing. I feel bad for Mike Brown. He's family, and I think it was a very brass decision on their part. I think they should have waited to the end of the year, evaluate, maybe make a move or two. But right now, they had a great season last year.
Yeah.
Brought in DeMar DeRozan, and they haven't been able to figure it out. They just have not been able to figure it out. And sometimes you just go through those ups and downs as a franchise, and you got to stick with it. But to make that decision before halfway through the season is a little bit trigger happy.
Is Vlade still in the front office out there?
I'm not 100% sure. I know he was as of a few years ago, but to be brutally honest, I'm not 100%.
My take with the Kings is that they don't get a lot of heat because they're the Sacramento Kings, but they are and have been one of the most poorly run organizations in the sport.
For sure.
And as long as Vivek Ranadive is the owner of that team and is as meddlesome as he is, and empowers, whether or not Vlade is still there, empowers guys like Vlade, you're going to see turnover. That franchise has a great fan base, by the way, despite all the losing they've done over the last 2 decades. You're never going to see them be what they were when we were growing up because that ownership, that stability just isn't there. And decisions like this kind of indicate that. And as selfishly as a Spurs fan, I hope that we can benefit by maybe adding a De'Aaron Fox kind of piece from that fire sale.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that one bit. I'm really not surprised he got fired because I follow multiple people within the Sacramento Kings fan base, and a lot of them were wanting Keon Ellis to play more minutes. A lot of them were saying that he's their best perimeter defender. He was playing inconsistent minutes. A lot of the stuff that we're saying about Stephon Castle, and they were saying that he basically was, he was kind of benching him, and it was leading to the Kings. They're sitting 12th right now in the West, so obviously things are going wrong there. And I do feel like Mike Brown was the scapegoat a little bit, but if your fan base is saying, hey, we want you to play X player, and management is saying, hey, we want you to play X player, and coach is saying, hey, I don't really want to play him, and you're not doing well, that opens yourself up to potential, potential turmoil, and you may get fired. That's life as an NBA coach.
When you're publicly feuding with your 2 best players for one reason or another, I think any coach in the NBA should probably be counting their days.
Yes, you're not wrong. Yeah, it just seemed like there was inconsistent communication, and while I know Mike Brown is a good coach and he can get you to a winning season, I don't know if Mike Brown is going to be a good coach for today's player that wants a little bit more freedom and maybe doesn't want that style of coach.
Yeah, he could be a little bit of a Brian Flores type, to equate it to a football analogy. Good coach, great tactician, but not a great people person.
We'll see if Doug Christie can get that train back on the tracks, but I'm not holding my breath for that one.
I'm not holding my breath. If his coaching is as ugly as his face, it's going to be bad out there.
Boom, roasted.
I'm sorry. Outside of Sam Cassell, he's a weird-looking dude.
You got roasted. Oh my goodness.
Clip that. I hope I don't have problems in Sacramento. Not that I'll ever go, but
Right. It's okay. We only have a few Sacramento Kings fans, and I'm sure they would probably agree with you. But yeah, I mean, okay, so we all agree Mike Brown, could have, should have, I mean, probably shouldn't have gotten fired, but definitely Sacramento was searching for a scapegoat, and they found one. So yeah. But okay, so I mean, it's New Year's Day. It would honestly be a complete travesty if we did not bring up the best moments in Spurs 2024. So when we're thinking about potential best moment of this year, AJ, what's coming to mind? What's ranking up towards the top of Spurs moments for you?
I need to look back on my dates, but correct me if I'm wrong. That Bucks game was in 2024, right?
you are correct.
That
Yes.
Bucks game was my favorite moment in 2024 because we saw Wemby on a big stage against a top team in the East just absolutely ball out and have like this welcome to the NBA to the whole world to everybody. And that was my favorite moment, was to see him step up in that game, block Giannis, do a behind the back on Dame Lillard, and one on Brook Lopez. I mean, that was probably my favorite moment because it showed the light and what it could potentially be for Spurs fans. And since that game, he has absolutely surpassed my expectations. We all knew he was going to be good, but to average 28 points in December while also averaging 10 rebounds and 5 blocks, I mean, it's and his numbers is incredible. His splits are great. So it makes me just so happy that Wemby's a Spur, and I'm thankful every time that I watch a Spurs game because every game he makes me go, holy shit. Like every game. It's always something new. I'm like, I've never seen that before. Like, what is this? So, yeah, that Bucks game was my favorite moment in 2024. James?
I'm going to go with drafting Steph Castle.
It's a good one.
That, if everything shakes out the way I think the front office is envisioning, if that's not your secondary piece, that's your tertiary piece right there. And so when you look at this team a few years down the road, drafting Steph Castle is probably going to be one of those things that says that sets this team apart from the others.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That could feel like getting Tony in the late first round.
Exactly.
It could feel exactly like that further on down the line. I agree with you.
I think it's pretty likely that you and I'm sorry. I think it's pretty likely that you look 3 or 4 years down the road and Steph Castle is the best player from this draft class. And to stack that on top of Wemby, that's how special teams are built.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's usually built brick by brick, and he's a very important brick. Yeah, that's certainly not a bad answer. That was one of mine. There was 2 other ones I had for potential best moments. It was the Wemby 50 piece.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I think, seeing him score 50 points at this early stage in his career is just, a very brief glimpse at what we're going to see. I bet we're going to see a 60. We're going to see a 70 piece from him. We may even see a quintuple double. I would love to see something crazy like that at some point. I don't know if we will see something like that, but, sky's the limit. But Another thing to me that was, I think, one of the coolest moments in 2024, CP3, second all time in assists, and he did it as a Spur. I think that is so cool to me to see him just honestly, and that's as high as he's gonna get because no one's gonna fucking pass John Stockton. That motherfucker is just cemented as assist god, and so to get second, that's essentially like that's as high as you're ever gonna get. So I think that was a really cool and significant moment for him to do that as a Spur. So
For sure.
shout out to that moment in 2024 as well.
I never thought I'd see the day where I'm rooting for Chris Paul in silver and black and loving every second of it. Another moment that I feel like deserves at least a little bit of love was that Knicks game last March. Overtime, Spurs win at home.
Yeah.
Brunson drops 60, but Wemby has 40 and 20. And it's kind of, a big show-out game against a quality Eastern Conference playoff team. And then a little bit of controversy after with the whole ball and whatnot. But that deserves at least a little bit of a shout out.
Absolutely.
Well, going back to Rob's point, CP3 being a Spur is probably one of the coolest stories this year that's not really being talked about outside of San Antonio. And you see him during his interviews with his teammates, things like that. He looks like he feels and looks younger. I don't know if you guys picked up on this too, but it feels like he's kind of had a rejuvenation of his career. And he's excited to play basketball. He's super happy to be on the team, and to take someone away from their family and not be able to see them on a consistent basis, but him being immersed in the Spurs family, I think has really, really done wonders for his career and his attitude. Because you look at his past few stops, like when he was with the Suns, he didn't really look super happy. When he was with the Rockets, he didn't look super happy as well. So seeing him now striving and loving playing with Wemby and teaching Steph Castle how to be a point guard, I think that really helps him kind of distract him from not being with his family. Because, he's a father, he's a husband, he wants to be with his family. They're in California. But that just goes to show you how great our organization is and how great our city is to bring in literally the enemy, to bring him in and basically say, we'll wrap our arms around you and we'll help you out during this time. And he's responded in the best possible way. So shout out to CP3.
Yeah, AJ, I think you bring up a good point. And Rob, I want to get your opinion on this. You talk about the culture and compare it to CP3's last stop in Golden State, where you hear some things now coming out. And AJ, you make a great point. CP3 didn't look happy to be there last year. He didn't play like he was happy to be there last year. And you hear some things now coming out about Golden State where Kuminga and Kerr butting heads. The franchise's direction is unclear. Clay's gone. Steph is being silent. So, Rob, what do you think about that? You see the culture of the Spurs kind of differentiating themselves from a Western Conference peer.
Well, I think that stems from having a young core to build around and young talent to get excited around because you know where your future's headed. And I don't think Golden State really knows where their future is headed. You see Steph Curry, and he's having a fairly up and down season, and he's playing inconsistent. He's still playing well. He's still playing good basketball. I don't want to shit on him, but you got to wonder when he's going to be out the door, and then your identity really changes. Your identity is completely gone without Steph. And so I think a lot of players are just wondering where that future is going to be. And when your future is up in the air like that, that can create turmoil amongst the ranks. And even a well-polished organization like Golden State is not immune to that. That's happened with a number of teams, even teams that have won championships within the last few years. We're talking about, the Bucks or the Nuggets. Even if you've gotten to the top, that still doesn't mean you're going to be able to keep your team together. And
yeah, look at us.
Yeah, it happened to the Spurs, and I think what's ultimately going to happen out there is Jonathan Kuminga is going to get traded because they're not going to make him the face of the franchise. He's just not good enough.
No,
he's a nice piece, solid piece, but it's just an interesting situation brewing out there.
Well, yeah, and if you can't trust Kaminga, then you don't know where your franchise is going to go. And so, if you're CP3 playing in that situation, it's like, why do I want to be here? I want to go out and hoop. I don't want to be in a situation where people are fighting and they're not understanding their roles. They don't know where they're going. No, CP3 can come over to the Spurs and be Unk. He can come over here and just be old head to these young
Master
players.
Splinter.
Yeah, and then that's perfect. With a team that has an established coach, Coach Pop. But I mean, obviously, things with Coach Pop are up in the air, which is my worst thing of 2024. But we can get to that here in a second. But it allows Chris Paul to play his more natural role, which is team leader. He's got young guys that are willing to listen to him and willing to do what he's saying out there. So I think, man, this is the perfect situation. And when he sat down with Tony Parker and did that interview recently,
that was great.
He said, I just want to hoop. I just want to go out there and hoop. Sure, I'm missing my kids, but when I want to go out there, I want to go out there and just play the game. And so I think the Spurs organization is allowing him to just go out there and fucking play the game.
Yeah.
Harrison Barnes, too. Harrison Barnes is the exact same situation. Look at him in Sacramento last year as opposed to this year in San Antonio. It's like he has a different lease on life. And, Rob, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's that culture that, when the Spurs advertise Spurs family, it's not just the tagline. They mean that, probably more so than anybody else in the league.
Yep.
It's a sight to behold. Makes me thankful as a fan.
Absolutely.
That Tony Parker CP3 conversation was great. Tony Parker's like, "Do you remember my house?" And he was like, "Yeah, man, it's the biggest house I've ever fucking been in."
Yeah.
Remember playing Guitar Hero during the playoffs?
Pop was not happy about that shit.
No, he wasn't. It's like you couldn't wait 2 weeks for this.
Right. I mean, if I was coaching, I wouldn't be happy about it either. In the regular season, sure, I could let it slide. A playoff series, fuck no. Hell
that was an intense playoff series.
Oh yeah.
Too.
Right. How are you just gonna go play fucking? How are you going to go play like Journey and then go and then have to drop 20, the next game? It's like, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's we got the better end of that stick. Oh yeah, but guys, that's feeling like a good episode. That's feeling like a really good conversation.
Berto.
But we need a dunk.
We need dunks.
We need dunks. I'm feeling good about what we talked about, but we need some dunks. So AJ, who are you excited to dunk on today? Who's AJ feeling like he needs to yam on?
Dude, I've been waiting for this moment ever since I saw it yesterday or a couple of days ago. I want to dunk on whoever bidded over $1,000 for Jeremy Sohan's hair. Whoever bought his hair after he cut it needs to be dunked on, fired, and never brought into society again. Like, what the hell are you doing? You're spending $1,000 on a dude's hair, and it's green. That's cool. And also the fact that Jeremy Sohan was like, "Hey, look, it's my hair," and it's in a fucking bag. Like, dude, that guy, whoever bought it, is a weird person. If you're gonna clone Jeremy Sohan, that's weird as shit. So whoever bought it, I don't know who you are. I'm sorry I don't know your name, but you're a weird dude, man.
All right, you got dunked on. If you're buying hair from another grown man, you got dunked on. James,
I'll get in the spirit. I have a note here that I wrote down last night that CJ McCollum must pay for his sins. And I single out CJ McCollum as the president of the Players Union. What have you done to the league we all love? And I don't think he gets nearly enough blame for the way that the CBA has handicapped the way rosters have been built and the way that therefore impacts the way the league is covered. And the way the league is covered right now, we all know, is not good. And I think an underrated source of that problem is CJ McCollum. And, whatever his motivations were, fairness, all that, it didn't work. And I think the union deserves better leadership. We're seeing the eggs hatch now. We're seeing the chickens come home to roost. So I would like to dunk on CJ McCollum. Probably will go down as the worst players union president in NBA history.
Ooh,
Wow.
dunk, dog.
Oh,
That's backboard coming down dunk, dude.
that. You know what? That's not too bad of a dunk right there. I like that dunk. I feel like he could absolutely be doing more. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dunk on people that feel like today is the day that you need to start working out. I'm gonna dunk on those people because if you felt like you needed to start working out and the fucking calendar gave you the inspiration and motivation to do that, you should have been doing it yesterday. You should have been working out on a fucking Tuesday, and just because it's a Wednesday today doesn't mean it's any fucking different. So I don't know. I'm dunking on New Year, New Me bullshit, but I don't know.
Amen. Hey,
Yeah.
if I may, as a guest, I have written this down. I have a trivia question for you two.
Let's do it.
All right. So, 2 of the top 25 head coaches in wins in NBA history were players on the Spurs' first NBA roster in 1976-77. Who were they?
Is Doc Rivers one of them?
No. 76-77 is a little bit before Doc's time.
You're right.
George Karl.
George Karl is one.
George
Cool.
Karl.
And the other was a guard as well.
Jerry Sloan. Did he play for the Spurs?
Not to my knowledge. I know him mainly as a Bull.
We're not talking about Silas, are we?
No. I don't know if Silas went on to coach.
I thought he did. Okay.
He might have. I don't know. This man is not currently coaching in the NBA.
Is he
Okay.
alive?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Shout out to him. All right. I got one. So hold on. I'm trying to go through my Rolodex of Spurs rosters. I'm only in 92 right now.
Yeah, honestly, my 70s Spurs knowledge is kind of sparse, is kind of all over the place.
Me too.
Wait. Is it Larry Brown?
No. I was surprised when I read this. It was actually Mike D'Antoni.
Oh,
22nd all-time in wins. Now, it's a little bit of a technicality. He only played in 2 games for the Spurs, but he was on the roster.
Damn. See, okay, I never knew he even suited up for San Antonio. That's wild. Okay.
So just a little bit of a trivia question to leave y'all with. I was looking for some of those last night.
Well, hell
thank
yeah.
you, Trivia Taker.
There we go. I appreciate some good trivia, some good knowledge dropping. Always appreciated.
That's what I'm here for. There's so much useless knowledge up here. Y'all know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
yeah.
do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, guys, that's been a good episode of the Baseline Bums podcast. Thank y'all for joining me, AJ, James. This has been a pleasure. I'm glad we got to talk this morning on this wonderful New Year's Day. If you're listening right now, if you are with us still, comment, like, share, subscribe, do all of that fun shit. We love you for being here. And as always, we're going to give a go Spurs a go.